Talking about the strengths of the bank itself, it's in the capital side of things, the credit and the management team, through probably what some would wage as some of the worst economic times in the history of the United States. It's been not Great Depression, I guess the moniker is Great Recession or however you want to call it, but some phenomenally tough times in 09 and 10, and I would argue probably not completely over with yet. We've been able to maintain a very, very solid capital base. The one the regulators really focus in on is the Tier 1 capital structure. Anything above 6 is considered a well-capitalized bank. Kind of the new 6 is probably 8 in the eyes of the regulators. If you're north of 8%, particularly with the asset quality we have, you're pretty safe bet with the regulators. They're very, very comfortable with us. Total risk-based capital, we're 12.5%, and that number has continued to climb over the last few years. So we weathered the storm of the recession, stayed very, very well capitalized, and that's without taking any outside funds. We did no TARP, we did no small business lending investments, no trust preferred. This is either capital we had or capital that we created in earnings during that time frame. So unlike a lot of the community banks, we have no hangover from the recession that we have to deal with on the capital side. Obviously, managing the loan portfolio is part of the key to our success. We focus on the delinquency side on a daily basis. It has continued to improve. Obviously, we got hit fairly heavily in 2010 and 2011. The green dot, the green bar on this one is First Internet Bank. The blue is the peers. It is a tough game for us. We're nowhere near our norms in the early 2000s, but it is improving on a day-by-day basis, and it is getting, we're back ahead of the peers, and it's really stayed ahead of the peers throughout the whole process. Not where we wanted to be, but we weathered the storm. It is getting better on a day-in and day-out basis. Dramatic improvement in the charge-offs category. Those of you that have been here in the past, you know, at the kind of year-end 2009, we had a charge-off of a large commercial property, which really distorted our numbers significantly. We moved that back to a asset and took it out of the write-downs in 2010 because of new security and a new position on the loan. So that kind of distorted the 09-2010 numbers. But when you look at 11 and 12, that's really straight up to peers. So charge-offs are without question headed in the right direction and getting better over the last 2 years. And again, it goes back to that persistent collection efforts, and it's also the age-old adage in my world in the computer side of garbage in, garbage out. We've obviously increased the enhanced the credit standards in the bank and the underwriting process, so that's enabled us to create good quality loans and also reduce the risk associated with them. The allowance side of things, we're improving. Again, as delinquency and charge-offs comes down, the allowance for loan losses, loan and lease losses improves as well. We're at 1.69%. If you go to compare this number to our quarterly call reports, we did make it a little bit of an adjustment here. If you look at the call reports, we're going to be roughly at 1.5. We have a number of loans through the mortgage origination that are on the books, mortgages held for sale, and they really don't impact our asset liability side of things, and there's no reserve necessary for them. It's just in the process. If we close it on the 15th and we don't sell it till the 3rd of the next month, it's on our books a month in, so we did adjust it down. This is a allowance based purely on the portfolio of the loans. 1.69, a little below peer, but again, our delinquencies, our loss history, all the other pieces a little below peer too, so everybody's comfortable internally and externally with our current allowance for loan losses. The REO program, as you can see in the peers, this is one number we do not want to beat them in. The REO world has gotten worse for the banking community over the last 2 or 3 years. This is real estate owned. It's something that we had as a loan that went bad, and we had to take the real estate or the property back. From the bank standpoint, we're at 0.25%. Most community banks are still out at 0.8 of a point. as of 3/31/2012. It's still a pretty big issue in a lot of traditional banks. One of the things that we're very aggressive about, if we have a loan that goes bad, it looks like it's going to turn to REO status, we will write it down to what we think the property value is at the time it's classified as REO. So we've already taken the hit. A lot of banks will move it to REO status and they won't actually take the losses until the property is disposed of and they have it clearly defined. So we're a little aggressive on the front end, so the bottom line in this 0.25%, it's pretty comfortable that there are no material future losses in that number. It's actually kind of nice in my position. There's not a week that goes by that I don't get some kind of solicitation either by phone or email from an auction house wanting to help us with our REO properties. And when I tell them we got 3 lots, we really don't need the service. We weathered this whole storm without having to really auction off much of anything. We had one commercial account we auctioned some equipment on, but I mean, we came through as unscathed could be for traditional banks. Next up is the employment side of the operation. Before I kind of go into the mechanics of this slide and talking, I got to tell you, it's been 12 to 13 years, and I think some of you have heard my oldest son comment about he really can't imagine me in the banking world and being an entrepreneur that's been in other services and particularly intellectual property where bankers don't seem to quite understand my other business community. I got to tell you, I'm at a great position with the team that we have at First Internet Bank today. The management is an all-time great high. We have phenomenally strong folks in all parts of the organization. It makes my job very easy overseeing and directing this group today. We have done some pretty significant changes. There's a number of bodies we added at the bottom, but I talked last year, and I'll come to another slide on them in a second. We really added a commercial real estate arm in the lending side about 18 months ago that are just absolutely hitting it out of the park. At the end of November, 1st of November last year, we added a senior vice president on the C&I lending side. She has brought a very experienced team along with her of 4 loan officers and a support person. Consumer mortgages continue to grow geometrically. We're now 14 sales staff with 2 sales managers, 17 support people to do the physical processing of the mortgages we originate, and 3 managers kind of overseeing both the origination as well as the placement of the loans in the secondary market. In total, in the course of last year, although we're an internet institution and generally headcount is not something we get real excited about. We actually are kind of the other side. We're very low compared to our peers. Out of a total of 76 employees today, the $600 million bank is actually run by 25 employees. The rest are tied into the mortgage operation, the commercial real estate, or the C&I lending. So the day-to-day operations of the $600 million community bank is run by a staff of 25. So we are still very, very lean and mean in the principle of the internet bank, but the additional staff here, when we move into commercial real estate, we move into C&I lending or the mortgage processing, although I would tell you on the staff of bodies that we have doing mortgages, we have a competitor. We're originating the same amount of consumer mortgages they do with literally 1/10 of the staff that they have in the overhead. So we're very, very lean and mean in doing great efficiencies with the internet model in consumer mortgages, although there is still a lot of physical paper and verification process in there that takes humans. We learned early on, as we ventured years ago, and a little dabble in the commercial real estate side and consumer or commercial lending. That needs to be done kind of the old-fashioned way. You need to go out, visit the business, kick the tires, see the person, go face-to-face. So the CRE and the C&I teams match up very well with what you would see in a traditional bank. We added 22 full-time bodies, a 42% increase year over year, which for us is huge. I mean, that's literally almost 10 years worth of growth for us in the body count, which is kind of interesting. We're busting at the seams on space. We will be making a move from the 9200 building on the corner to 8888 shortly after the first of the year because we're just out of space. Those that are local probably know that State Farm took every square inch of space in our building that we didn't have control over, yellow pages, and there's no place for us to go. So we're actually going to move across the parking lot shortly after the first of the year. Nicole and folks say I have to let them get through year-end issues and processing and all those things before I disrupt the apple cart, but we're going to bounce over to 88 building to continue to grow and enhance this side of things.